So welcome everyone to this panel discussion where we have 4 of the speakers that we already had earlier today together to discuss, and we've learned a lot about what they've done in the past, but actually I would like to pick their brains on what lies ahead. What do they think that is going to come into the future? The 4 people we have here, I will just do a very brief introduction for those that haven't been here earlier today. But we have Giovanni Lanzani, second place here, Managing Director of the Academy at Go Data Driven. We have Andreu Mora, Head of Data Science, Machine Learning at Mora Sacha Roggeveen, Head of Data Analytics at Bol.com, and Bianca Scheffler, which we've just heard from Swiss Re, Head of Data Culture and Innovation. But before we actually go to the future, I would like to briefly discuss the past, right? How did you go through the different stages of the maturity journey that we heard earlier today from Stephen? And in the talks, actually, most of you have mentioned setting the right expectation, data culture, and getting the right infrastructure as key, right? So those will be topics we're also going to discuss about. And the first question I would like to actually ask to Andreu. Maybe you could share, how did you set the right expectations in your organization?
I think maybe it's important to note that some years back, I think there was too much hype around data and there was over expectation around it, right? Everyone's like AI and big data and blah, 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 blah. I think that in our case, that was negative in a way that it was frowned upon even, like, right? So for us, the strategy to start convincing about, having a clear roadmap towards data was delivering value, which is a bit a chicken and egg problem, right? To deliver value, you need a strategy, but, right? So we started little by little, showing that we were delivering good stuff that was adding value and that we needed more. We needed better infrastructure, we needed more people, we need to maybe reflect better on things. That's on the first stage. When we got there, then definitely it's about a good plan on a data infrastructure. If you don't have data infrastructure, you can't serve it with analytics and you can't train models.
Thank you. Any thoughts from the other panelists on this topic?
They all agree.
All agree. Very good.
Maybe I can add to this. I mean, that's a good point on the infrastructure side. I mean, we are a company which is 150 years old. As you mentioned, we always work with data. So when the first hype around using digital tools or using electronic devices, Swiss Re turned a bit like the biggest software development company in Switzerland, because you cannot go to the market and say, oh, I want to have the next reinsurance tool. You can do this with, I need a HR tool or I need an ERP. For our business, this wasn't in place. So it started at the same, I would say, dimensions. I was like, we have thousands of homegrown developed software. How do we make it work? And of course, infrastructure is a very important aspect to this.
Yes.
So yeah, what I have to add to that is that what really helped for us is that you really allocate headcount and space for it to execute upon all this stuff. Because most data professionals see that this is needed to get to infrastructure, to get to a plan, to make a plan together to get your company to the next phase. But if there's no time and nobody to execute upon that, and everybody's doing this on purely goodwill in the evening hours, it's gonna just die out, phase out slowly, and your best workers with the best intention are just gonna walk away. If you make it a program and make sure that it gets the recognition from the entire company, that really helps in getting it delivered in the end. So yeah, make sure that the capacity is there. That for us was a real game changer.
Okay. Giovanni, what would you say, right? We have actually quite different companies here on the stage as well. Is there actually a difference what you see how different companies go through the journey?
Yeah, for me, one of the biggest differentiator, of course, is that what kind of company is it in the sense that it's like a data company from basically day one, like we think about like Facebook or Google or this Uber, like at Uber. We work for them, and there every managers need to be able to write SQL because they need to be able to query their data, right? So if they take a decision wherever they are in their daily base, they have to be able to go out, query the data they have, and say, this is a decision that makes sense. So they're there already. Then you have, I think. Andreu and Adrian are a good example. You have these tech native companies, like this strong engineering culture, but where data was like, I don't want to say a byproduct, but it was, analytics and AI was not there from the start. And I think the big advantage that they have is that for them, they already have the engineering culture, so getting to the infra part, it's easier, so to say. They are much, they're very quick because they have very smart engineers there. And then you have a lot of traditional companies that actually they are, the data is siloed away, so the infrastructure is problematic, and they have a long journey ahead of them. I think Steven today mentioned that 3 years, which for some companies might be a understatement. And if you don't have a strong, in leadership with a vision on this, and as Sacha just said it, you need to make a program, you need to make resources available. People don't have to work on the evenings to get it off the ground. They have to do it as part of the daily job. So if you don't have this strong leadership with a strong vision, that you'll never get there. So I think that's a bit, the difference between companies and how they approach this journey.
Okay. Bianca, coming from a traditional company, what is your view on that? Do you see that the same?
I absolutely see this the same. We are not like a Silicon Valley tech company, but we deal with data, as we mentioned, since a long time, and the evolution it takes to have. I mentioned 2 years ago, this company announced the chief data officer, and I know how long we took the discussions with the C-suite if we even need this on this level. When I joined the company, it started off like use case based. So some courageous managers in these companies thought we can do something cool with data and analytics and put the ground floor, and we started presenting these cases. At this point in time, there was not like a complete decisions from our executives like, yes, we for sure will invest and put an organization in place, etc. Look where we are now, just 7 years later. We have a huge organization headed by our chief data officer. We are investing in culture, bringing the whole company on the journey with us. But it's a long way, and it's exactly this show with use cases, bring up ideas, I always say, you need to drink a lot of coffees and present your ideas to many, many people to make a decision in this company towards this.
Maybe we go to the short-term future and think about what is going to come. What are the challenges that we're going to face? And ones that we've identified also pre-discussing this panel is talent and ethics and the spirit after the hype, technical debt and shortening the cycle. But maybe let's start with the topic of talent, because what we often hear, right, is companies really struggle to find the right talent for their organization, but at the same time, when you speak to people looking for a job, they find it really hard to find a job, and maybe to stay with you, Bianca. What do you think, well, an organization like Swiss Re, but maybe also society should do to tackle this issue?
So first of all, in my free time, I'm educating kids in programming. Just because I have kids and I want them to have this capability that they can program, and the schools were very open for me doing this. But I think that's the first part which I want to see in the society, in the school systems and across. I mean, this whole data literacy topic which we heard about, I mean, you all have maybe seen COVID charts. How many people could really interpret the COVID charts and how these KPIs are calculated? I mean, you really need to look at this from this point of view, and it will become more and more. So from a society perspective, I do my part, which I can do, but I really would like to see data literacy, like a general literacy, becoming this. No people should be afraid. When I graduated from school or even from university and I studied AI, I couldn't even use it in a job interview because the people were scared. Tells a little bit, it was like some long years back. So this is on the society aspect. It needs to become day-to-day business, dealing with data, having the skill set, having the capabilities. Now, diving a little bit into a company, because I'm as well a hiring manager and I share this pain. I had just started off the year with 2 job offers, by the way, for the data culture team. I need people who know how to deal with data, who understand what is ML, what is AI, what's the difference, what it's not, having these analytics translators. After 4 or 5 weeks, I had no application because nobody is looking to Swiss Re when graduating from an APFL or from an ETH or from any other university. So I have a call to my company to be more present on conferences like these, on being seen as a tech company. I think this is which should. I hear a lot of my colleagues saying, oh, we don't have a good talent pipeline, or we are needing talents. And I was like, okay, what do we do? What do we do for this? And for the talents on the market who maybe see, don't look only on the big tech companies. I know so many cool companies. You have seen how many people and companies we are dealing with. They're cool, interesting cases, and stay curious and try really as even a data scientist or as a techie person. Invest in business knowledge, understand asset management, understand marine, understand insurance or whatever you're interested in. Maybe look for a part. I'm definitely sure there is a part. So I speak both sides. Companies need to be a little bit more present and open what they do with data to attract talents, and the talent should be open to understand business.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, yeah?
Maybe on the talent thing, although because it's a topic that we touched before, right? I think it really boils down to honesty. Honesty from the companies and honesty from the candidates. And that, if the honesty not there, right, the company says we need a data person to do this, and then this person joins and doesn't do that, that's bad, right? Also from the companies showing where they are in their journeys on being mature, right? Because maybe you want or not to join a data mature company, depending on what you like more. Also then from the candidates, people don't trust a lot the candidates, and then they go with unrealistic interview processes. They ask you to do bubble sort in an interview, right? And it's like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not using that, right? So I think this communication breakdown you were mentioning before, it really boils down to honesty, to trying to bridge that gap on where are companies and what do they want, and also the candidates, what can they do, what's the energy, and to see if they match.
Any thoughts, Sasha? Giovanni?
Yeah, I do. I think there are 2 kind of aspects to this. One is that, as Andreu said, a lot of companies are pretty picky in the sense that, we need people, and then you set high standards, and the reason is that you have no plan to say, how do we bring people that do not meet these standards, how do we bring up to our own level, right? And of course, you might think, well, there's a huge investment to do so. We shouldn't do the job of universities, but the alternative is that you cannot find the right people. And if you find them, you have an incredible hard time retaining them. Because retention, of course, I believe working for a company is not like a wedding that you hope it lasts forever or approximately forever. It has a particular due date, and you have to ensure that this due date is farther along in the future, but it doesn't come for free. It's not like we have employment for life, like my father, like he works at the same place basically for all his life. It doesn't exist in the world of data. So the thing is that we have a limited amount of time, and I think Steven said it earlier today, like, what do you do to have an awesome place to work? And not just in terms of, capabilities that you require for people, also kind of team, what kind of experience you give them in terms of what is the purpose of what you're doing? Like, are you doing this where the goal is to make money? I really like the bio of Denise, where she wrote that creating products that increase the quality of life of people is one of our goals, which is something that really attracts a lot of talent, because that is what we, all this movement that are outside of the data world that we are seeing, if you just look at the news, they have nothing to do with how much you pay. They have to do with, you know, what do I really believe in? And it's something that it's an area which I think it's really not given enough attention.
I basically agree with all of you, so it's there's not much of a discussion so far. It's just to add to that. I do see a problem in the near future for the availability of data profiles. I heard it a lot the last couple of weeks as well with other data professionals, other companies. There's really a lack of good data people at the moment, and I think this lack is going to get worse and worse for us. It's harder and harder to hire the right professionals, and I think that makes training and development of the people inside of your company more and more important. And I think retainment indeed of good candidates with domain knowledge basically that have been there for 5-6 years in your company. That's the hardest, because I often see that it's not rewarded anymore in current market. There's a market where, you know, transferring to a different company is just very worthwhile. You make a jump in salary, and staying at a company for you get little percentages. People see that, people feel that. In a world where there are so many options, so many cool things to work on, they're just like jumping up options and not staying where they were. And I think it's also to the companies to reward loyalty, and it's something we seem not to do anymore.
Thanks. Moving on to the next topic. I mean, we're moving more and more to automated decision making, and that comes with multiple challenges, right? And one of them is the ethical part that Bianca already mentioned in her talk before. But and I will ask the question first to Sacha. What do you think will be the biggest challenge that we're going to face in the next 1-2 years when we're talking about that when we make automated decisions that they're also ethical, fair?
So I see that we have a problem if we make decisions only about sales, about revenue, about pure profit. We always see companies where algorithms basically find ways to make profit that we haven't envisioned before, that they would have actually gone into that direction to make profit. And they're actually extorting our weak, basically, the weak of society, people with gambling issues, buying more than they can and they want to. And I feel like the next version of algorithms should be algorithms with values, that's not purely only about profit, but also about like, what do you want to achieve in the world and how you put that down to numbers like an algorithm. Sometimes one of the algorithms I find beautiful is basically, in the sense of values, is basically blockchain. If you look at blockchain, at least it's built around a principle, right? It's decentralization. That's what it's all about, and everything's built around it. And that you can agree with it, you cannot agree with it, you know. And that's a good way of building an algorithm. While these organizations that only build for profit, basically, you'll see you will see the downsides of it. The algorithm will find ways to get profit in ways that you didn't want to make profit at all. So keep on thinking about like what you put into the algorithm as a goal function.
Bianca, what do you see as the biggest challenge for Swiss Re, making sure that what you implement, automate decision making, is ethical?
So, and it goes in the same direction. I mean, Swiss Re is a company who has as well as society responsibility. You know, there are not so many reinsurance companies in the world. And after the reinsurance industry, by the way, there is nothing. So if you look for a society who wants to remain innovative, who wants to rebuild from disasters like a pandemic, like, you know, the things we are seeing right now happening to the world, we do have a society responsibility. And we are not a company who even sell data, but we have a lot of data. You know, we mentioned we're getting so many data we even can't look at. Scans, etc. So when we build models who understand risks better, for us, we need to understand as well the consequences of the models we put in place. Just think about a very simple, basic model around health risks, cancer, diabetes. I mean, we know how to price them. Interestingly, it's very easy to price cancer and diabetes. It's more difficult to price mental health risks, which are emerging. And no matter, you know, we see that the biggest increase we do have is mental health risks. How do we price this? And if we are now putting models in place, as you said, who's looking exclusively on the monetization or the, you know, the sales benefit, you know, to estimate what are certain kind of health conditions could be, then we are really on a thin line compared to the ethics. And this is something, I think, a big question to the industry of the reinsurance, the insurance. We are in close exchange with our regulators, etc., to accept, our responsibilities and really build. I was asked on how, we manage this pipeline to really avoid having discriminating algorithms or models which may, exclusively look on the benefit but not on the society and the people.
And well, let's assume we get there at one point, right? That we have the regulations and that they're implemented and we're all holding each other accountable for it. But what do you expect is the biggest hurdle to get there? Is it on the organization side? Is it on the regulatory side? Where do you expect the biggest hurdle to get there?
The biggest hurdle for me is still, I would say, the people understanding the details. You cannot push it back to data scientists to go to this pipeline, and we need to educate people on the regulator side, our management. I mean, we need to become more and more aware of what it really is and learn how we can control it, etc. And not only on paper. I mean, I've seen quite often as well in my whole career manager who have never had the formal education on taking such decisions and getting to this point. I mean, we're seeing more and more people having a formal education in data, becoming, responsible as well on the regulator or on the company side. But that's a big hurdle because we are all very traditional companies, and we are not built on, having this engineering culture on each and every management level. And I think this will be a big hurdle to make the right choices on each and every level, to have as well the knowledge to make these decisions.
Thank you. Giovanni, any thoughts from your side on this topic?
Yeah, for me, what is also important is culture, in the sense there will always be, one or two people in an organization that would like to, maximize the profit because it's, their bonus depends on that. But of course, if the culture is against kind of that, so if they find that people that, said, this is not the behavior we want to be associated with, that's really going to be, the differentiating factor. And if it's a culture where, again, profit is the end goal, is the only KPI you measure against, you'll never single out these bad actors. They will be allowed to flourish. And I mean, I have two examples. One is with a mortgage provider that they came to the data science manager saying we want to, create a model to determine the ethnicity based on the surname of a person, and he asked why do we want to do that? And they said, well, we saw that people from North Africa, they default more often on their mortgage, and at that point the manager said, well, we're not going to do that. That's not who we are. And the other example was with a supermarket chain where they have this program where you have like a card where you can get extra discount. And they wanted to see which employees were shopping there and which employees were disloyal to them and were shopping elsewhere. And again, the manager says, well, we're not going to go there because it's just not in the culture. I mean, we want to win because we're the best, not because we play dirty and like these kind of tricks on with the data that we have. So I think that's pretty important, to maintain high ethical standards.
Thank you. Let's speak about technology. Right, we're seeing this trend of MLOps going on. A lot of providers as well, providing bits and pieces of making this process smoother and kind of shorten the time from idea to production. What's your view, Giovanni, on where we stand in the market with offering at the moment? What's the level of maturity there?
I think it's an interesting question. It's also related a lot to infra and to talent. Why do I say so? First of all, because when the products that you build, the internal products that you build are one thing, but at the moment where you give people the freedom to also let the outside world what they've done, so make them open, like Andreu was mentioning Airflow, which originated in 2015, 2016 at Airbnb. They built their own orchestrator and then they made it open, and that's a huge, lever to retain talent, because again, this gives people purpose. Most of the best thing, in my opinion, about the data science world are things that are open, that are open, and you can just use them. You can use the algorithm. You don't have to pay SaaS for to analyze the data. I hope they don't sponsor the conference, by the way. And so if people can give back, that's a huge retainer. On the other side, most of them at the beginning they start to be super specific to the companies that build them. And if I look today, like at the status of ML Ops platform, Netflix, they have one in-house, Uber, they have one in-house, Booking.com, Spotify, and Swiss Re, we learned today, they also have one in-house. And of course, why do they do that? Because like their infrastructure, the set of constraints and problems that they have, is so specific that the things that were out there were not, were not enough for what they wanted. But of course, not everybody is Booking, not everybody is Swiss Re, not everybody is Uber. So they have to settle for this, hopefully, open standards. And now MLflow is one that comes to mind that is really gaining traction. And so that means that we'll have to somehow, if these tools were created with a specific company, with a specific set of problems and infra, it means that the others will have to kind of adapt a bit to the creator of this, or be big enough to make an impact and to kind of generalize these tools to be able to, to be used in-house. So I think that it's, a lot of companies will continue building their own, and the other people will kind of standardize around the set, I think, of good practice to bring machine learning models into production.
I think that's a nice point to also bridge and start looking at the long-term future. So if we now start thinking about 5 or maybe even 10 years from now, Andrew, how do you expect that this will look like long-term future?
Okay, I'm gonna take a dive here, of course. I think a lot of things we do around data and ML will be a commodity. There will be de facto open source frameworks or tools or managed services that make it really easy for companies to use it, either deploying in production or getting your analytics right and things like that. I think most of the companies will realize that and will opt for that. The same way they did for the cloud, right? That they say, well, I have all these services, I don't need to build myself, I pay them a fee and then they do it for me. I think that will happen more and more in a lot of companies. What I think is going to be a bit different, though, is in the complexity of the models. I think that most companies will get some models up and running that are very effective, but fairly simple. Some companies will go to models that are more complex and still very effective, and very few companies will manage to train, like we saw this morning, GPT-3 stuff. It's very expensive and doesn't really pay off. So there will be a few players that will provide these possibly upper request API-based services for very complex things, and will be more and more this trend. Yep.
Sacha, how do you envisage this to look like?
If we look more in the future, so then I believe the landscape will change a lot. Indeed, I believe very much in open source tooling, really aiming to the whole story of Giovanni about open source, about how we're gonna indeed share our ways of working with each other, and together we'll build better tools, indeed. I very much hope that there will not be these big companies like the real big techs owning all the real expensive and heavy tooling, but I'm afraid we're at the moment kind of going there, and that's the direction I see. For me, what is important in this is the role of governments, basically, and what we see there. And I feel like governments will increase their grip on technology as well, and it will become also harder to, release and all your algorithms over your users so easily. And also, data will be maybe in some ways less accessible, not more accessible. So that's in the future going to be all kinds of challenges that we have to face. Meanwhile, we will see different companies that will be run more like an algorithm, from an algorithm, basically. Even like boardrooms, basically, being more than a big formula. This is how we're going to run the company, and every decision we make is alongside this formula. But I also hope and still believe that there will be a massive amount of companies who are not going to go there and still go into the creative path of like organized mess basically, and just chaos, and everybody does in the creativity what they like, and be just more the human-like. But I find it I thought a lot about it, find it very hard, and I like also to speculate with the audience with it, like which areas would that be? Because every time it's like, oh, art, we will never, automate art. But then, saying that, I'm already like, oh yeah, there is actually AI art, There are actually already platforms where we can already automate that kind of stuff and use old paintings to combine them together to get new paintings. So yeah, it's every time I think like, oh, this is something is not automatable, and then almost always there's already some kind of solution to it. So yeah, I'm also curious to you guys if there's like, can you find this one area that's not like automatable at all? There's no solution for computers to do the same job as we humans do. Yeah.
I don't remember when I read it, but it was about the obsolescence of your job because it's going to be automated, right? And he said that the most valuable professions are the ones dealing with humans, right? So, for example, a physiotherapist or a hairdresser, right? You don't want a robot to put the scissors around your head. You have to really trust the robot. Which was quite eye-opening for me, right? Because you could imagine that more complex tasks maybe are more automatable. But there's really a human component, right? I think we're not there yet to trust the machine. It's going to be a long journey to that. We'll see with the self-driving cars. Yeah.
Bianca?
I would be happy to add this because, I know, and as well in the community, there's a lot about the open source. Now, imagine when we have, and we shared how many different use cases we have, how many different, data science, actuarial science, quant analysts we do have. Imagine we give them all the freedom to use whatever open source tool they come around. Just from a pure governance point of view, it's not manageable. And this is something which, as a company, when you take this position, you cannot hire data scientists and give them, you can come with whatever tool you want. There must be a certain governance around. There must be a certain structure around. Yes, you need to give them flexibility to use whatever kind of, tech stack is feasible for the work to do. And there we need to research what is it. But we see the most benefit of attracting talents who are willing to invest as well as their learning curve for our tech stack. We can't offer everything. That's just too expensive and too risky for a company. And on your other comment, we are a very traditional company. Although we are based on data, we are very traditional, so I don't see any board decisions coming from an algorithm. But what I think is long-term really needed, it's, I mentioned this, you need to have the skill set and the capabilities making data-driven decisions. And I think that will be key for any kind of executive, for any kind of manager, how do I look into making data-driven decisions, even if it's strategically for a company like Swiss Re.
Now, I wanted to add one thing to what Andreu said a couple of minutes ago about the standardization and the commoditization of algorithms, if I understood correctly. Because I think 2-3 months ago, Andrew and G put out a data-centric competition, and a couple of colleagues from Groningen won the competition like internationally, and they said that. Actually, they had some insights based on the competition saying that if the models are going to get commoditized, and many of them already are, right? If you work with scikit-learn, you call fit transform, and then you're done basically, and you have your model. But of course, all the hard work is in the data. So how do you shape your data? What kind of business processes created it? And then all the differentiations are not going to come from the algorithms that are available for everyone because they're open most of the time, but it's going to come from the data. And so getting good with the data and also automatically for free gets you familiar with the business and the business problems they have, because that's how the data has been generated in the first place. So that's actually one of the areas where future data scientists, they want to say, how do I stand out in front of the crowd? Well, it's actually exactly this: give more attention to data. And I found it actually funny that once I was looking for the tracks for today, the only track with data in this title was this one here. Because it's what I actually believe is kind of the core, right? We're not here most of the time to, we all represent businesses. We're not here to advance, academic research. We're here to make life better for the customers that we serve. And so data plays a central role there.
Thanks a lot. Giovanni, maybe a last question I will ask to the rest as well before opening up to the audience. But we've seen in the maturity journey, right? There's 4 steps. The 4th step being AI democratization, and then there's this big star on top with like an AI-driven company. Do you think all organizations will they or should they strive to become AI-driven organizations?
Well, I think it depends a bit on the size that they have, and also on the on the goals. And if you commoditize everything away, then it'll become easier for organizations to do the kind of the first 2 steps, and then maybe it will be enough for them to thrive. And there's some it's kind of a church question coming from Italy, where the artisanal spirit is very strong, and the craft and making things, where maybe AI will not play a role, but there will be everything outside of that, of that area where where you're not doing things with your hands, where data can actually help you and help your business be better.
I agree.
So maybe I answer this question for you twofold. One, a very personal one. As I mentioned already earlier, I studied AI in the 90s, and I had a very cool professor. We were only 7 students at the technical university. We were the weirdos, at all. So when I graduated, it was really hard to find a job using the word AI or something close. So yes, I'm looking forward for more companies really embracing this kind of technology. I'm waiting quite long for it. And I do at least my part to help organizations to really embrace what you can do with AI. And yes, focus on the data piece. I mean, that's what I learned already back then. That's important. So that's just my personal ambition. Maybe answering it more from a Swiss Re ankle point of view. We first of all would never use the word being driven by something, because this means we are a little bit forgot our own purpose. So we have put out the mandate to become a data-led risk knowledge company, and there's coming a business. We don't diverge from our core business. We are here to do risk transfer. We are here to understand the risks of the world and provide products, relief, maybe prevention actions. So when you think about the climate crisis, you can look on our publications years back, what we publish, what could be done already to prevent certain risks. And I think every company should stay core. What is their core business? And then embrace AI and data and try to make the best of these capabilities for your company's purpose.
I'm happy I was the last on the round, so I could think a bit. I'll take a bit a stronger position here. I'll say no. I don't think it's good for society neither. Even though I'm a very strong technologist, I don't think it's good. I think we should strive to what data can bring to society. Put an example. Imagine a corner bakery shop, right? So if you, for example, use Agent to get your, for payments, it's nice because we can reach to all these corner bakery shops, which are smaller businesses. We can use data to automate and democratize and offer a service, right? But if you ask the bakery owner, hey, run an algorithm to optimize your portfolio of breads, maybe you are this sad guy that liked that bread that the algorithm told him, don't do that because that don't sell very well. So I think we lose a bit as society if we just totally optimize for things. So I don't think every business should be data-driven.
Thank you very much. Sacha?
To make it a bit of a discussion, let's go a bit to charge against. Well, at some point you can also say that as humans we know we are imperfect. We not always make consistent and good the right choices, and we know very well when we're not doing it. Maybe we can teach machines, basically, teach computers to make the decisions for us, and sometimes also tell us when we're not making the right decision at all. And this can actually make that we're getting more consistent to our own values, of what we believe in and what our future is, and getting closer to this perfection, where you basically say, let's not be driven by computers. Maybe computers can be more than we ever would be. So that could be something that is against it.
Good. With that, I would actually like to open up. We have room for 1 or 2 questions from the audience to the panel. Are there any questions?
Hello. Yeah, I have actually a question for you, Sacha. You mentioned at some point that it's important to not only optimize for profit, but for value. And I was curious, how does this show in bol.com?
Yeah, great question. So we have also the interesting use case where it would be better for our planet if we sometimes sell less, not more, because we're very much like for consumerism, basically. So that's something also we see as a company and we believe in, and we're more looking at our footprint than ever before. What are we doing? And do we sell actually the right stuff, or do we basically sell crap that's not going to last? So in this way, we're looking at not purely making profit, but also helping our customers in the best possible way and making it easy for them to purchase the things they need at that moment, but also purchase the best things, which might actually mean, in the end, we're not going to make more profit, but we're going to help the customers better. So that's something, a real discussion that we have currently, and yeah, I think that really represents like how the values of what you're doing for society have to reflect upon your goals in your organization.
Would you add a field when people are on your platform? Would you add a field? You know, think about sustainability. Do you really need this?
Exactly. Yeah, that would be a cool one. Right? Now we have a sustainability logo for certain products, but yeah, maybe the reminder. Yeah. Do you really need this? Yeah.
I think that's a very nice last note to close on. I think we've discussed, hey, how have you guys gone through this maturity journey? We talked about the challenge of the data culture, the people perspective, how to find the talent, how to retain the talent, and that would be definitely a big challenge ahead of for most of us, but also finding the right way in the technology landscape and how to integrate this. Closing off with, well, not every company needs to be an AI company, I think was the general statement, but I think in essence we can all use it at one point. With that, I would like to thank the four of you for your thoughts, the discussion, and the audience for being here. And I think I will give the last word for this afternoon to close off to Giovanni.
Well, there are drinks outside, so I don't think we need to say anything else. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you around these days.